Well, thank you all. Thank you all for braving the fierce winter storm that came knocking on our doors this morning. So I'm glad to have you all here and to welcome the visiting artist, Dave Jordano. Just a few things, like I always like to say, if you want to keep up with what we're doing here at the museum, really a couple excellent ways to do that. One is to follow us and friend us on Facebook. It's where we kind of post things about classes, about exhibits, about pop-up things that we're doing here at the museum and events. The other way to do it, to keep track of what we're doing, is become a member. There's multiple ways that you can go about that. We have forms on the front desk or out the east entrance, but you can also fill something out online. And when you become a member, you get sent postcards about all the exhibits, about any events that we're doing. You get sent a quarterly publication that we send out that has exhibit information, class information, all that great stuff. Plus, you get some benefits and discounts for the gift shop and then also for the art classes. So those are really two good ways to kind of keep track of what we're doing here at the museum. And then other ways to keep involved is just to come and visit and interact with the museum as often as you can. So if you want help signing up to become a member, just find myself or Angela or Pamela. Even Doug Brightman will be able to help you out as well. I know you don't know, some of you may not even know who those people are, but just come find me and I will help get you signed up for that. So, again, we want to welcome Dave Jordano here to Fort Dodge with this amazing exhibit of duck blinds. You know, one reason why I was interested in bringing this exhibit into the museum is, like, I always try to reach out to communities that I want to get involved with that I think might not normally be involved with the museum. So one of those communities would be like a hunting community. And I thought this exhibit would speak very closely to something that they would understand, and then we bring them into the museum, and then we get to expose them to all the other wonderful art that we have here at the museum. And I think we did a pretty good job. We had some really great kid interactions with visiting fourth graders that were coming through, some second graders too. Did they see this show? Some second graders came in, and so we had some really great, useful interactions. And a lot of them talked about hunting with their parents or hunting with their dad, right? And so, so far it's been really great to have this exhibit here and having all these wonderful people interact with them. And I just love these things. I love looking at these structures. They become these very interesting kind of sculptures, these kind of biomorphic kind of entities that exist within this frozen plain, and I think they're just captured very wonderfully. And so Dave Jordano, being from the Chicago area, is a well-known photographer within that area, and he was introduced to me by another artist that we had an exhibit here, Dennis Hagen. And so I'm glad for both Dennis Hagen to introduce me to Dave, and I'm glad that Dave is here. So I won't say too much more. I'll let Dave kind of finish out explaining who he is to the rest of you. And so let's welcome Dave Jordano.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out today in this weather. I'm very proud of you for taking the chance to drive a car in this kind of weather. But not perfect, but at least you made it. I appreciate that. This work came out of a previous project that I was working on between 2005 and 2011 that I called the Prairie Land Project. And being someone who lives in a very urban city, I wanted to explore the rural parts of Illinois. And I did this for like several years, and I would take long weekends to go out into the state and just document things that I found interesting. I did portraits of people, I shot interiors, I shot rural landscapes, I shot small towns and the architecture, and all of these things developed into this one project. that I had a book published on. But one day, I was up in the northwestern parts of Illinois, and I stopped and met a guy, and he was standing by the shoreline. And we were having a talk, and I just said, what is that little thing out on the water there? It's a little shed or something. He said, no, those are duck blinds. And he said, you know what's going to happen? He said, they've been there for a long time, but they all have to be removed because the Departments of Natural Resources banned them. They could not stay there overnight or over year after year after year. So he said, you're going to have to take them away at the end of this hunting season. And if you want to come back next year, you can put it up for a few weeks and then you have to take it back down. So that's the laws that went into place at the time that I met this man in 2009, which is when I took these photographs. So they're 15 years old. But, what I loved about them when I met this guy, I said, well, this is like 6 o'clock at night already, so I have to come back the next morning. And I'm going to, take a bunch of extra food and water with me, and I'm going to go hike on the Mississippi River. And I did about a 12-hour hike by myself along the river, and I photographed about 40 of these duck blinds. And what was unique about that day is the weather never changed. It was a cloudy, misty kind of day. It's very monochromatic. And what I liked about that was all the pictures have the same consistency in terms of lighting and color. So I thought if there were blue skies and clouds and all kinds of other things that were distracting, these would not look as consistent. And it almost looks like they were photographed in a commercial studio, where you had the lighting and everything. And it was just all so perfect that day. And I just had a great day walking up and down the Mississippi River. And knew that I had a special little project that was part of the Prairie Land Project, but it held itself in its own way. And what I liked about all of them was each one's a little different. Each hunter designed and built their own duck blind in their own fashion. So they were almost sculptured in the sense that they were so different from one another, even though they're all the same and they're all very utilitarian. But I saw them as sculpture, artistic kind of sculptures. And that was, one of the nicest days that I've had when I was working in the whole Prairie Land Project, is doing this work. But see what else I can say about these guys. Some of them, when you look at them, like the number 31 back there in the corner, it looks like a pig. It looks like an animal or something. It has its own character.
Which one's 31?
And uniqueness to it that
Oh, yeah.
brings it out as something more interesting. And the one in the other corner back here, to me, looks like an old vintage car.
Yes.
So they took on some of their own identities, that were unique to
Well,
themselves.
and the one next to the one in the back, and this right there.
Yes.
Looks like a pickup truck.
Yeah.
The pickup truck, yeah, with that little French car, I forgot the name of it. What is it, Shana? What's that name of that car?
Pardon?
What's the name of that French car?
Citroen.
A Citroen, yeah, that to me looks like an old Citroen from the 50s. So it was unique in that sense. But I've been a photographer since I was 20 years old. So it's been 56 years. Photography has consumed my life. And when it happened, I was in the military in Germany in 1968. And it was a Saturday morning, and one of my roommates had an Instamatic camera, and he said, "Hey, Dave, why don't I take a picture of you, and you take a picture of me, and we'll go down to the local photo lab, and we'll develop the film, and we'll make some prints, and we'll send them back to our parents." And this is a Saturday morning, it was boring, and I said, okay, let's do it. And then the moment I got into that dark room and flipped the cap off the top of that roll of film, I just said, this is it. I'm going to be a photographer. It just it was like an unusual moment in my life, and I just knew it. This is what I was going to be, and it's happened ever since. So that one little question, you want to take a picture of me, and I'll take a picture of you. I mean, it was fate. It changed my life. So the rest of my photography, I had a commercial career in Chicago as a fine art, or not fine art, but commercial food and product photographer. I had a long, successful career for 33 years. And during that time, I didn't take any fine art photographs. I just concentrated on doing a commercial career, and I had major clients like Budweiser and Sears and McDonald's and Crate and Barrel and Kraft Foods, and I was basically a still life and food photographer. So everything I did, I created in my studio, and I lived and I composed. So I was very controlled in that sense. But that was, for like a long time. Before I did that, after I discovered photography in the military, I went to school in Detroit at the Center for Creative Studies and majored in photography. And during that time, 3 or 4 year time, I did a lot of 35 millimeter and 4x5 black and white work in Detroit. But then I graduated, and I got married, and I had to have a career, a job. So that's when I moved to Chicago in 1977. And so I left all of that black and white, early 35 millimeter and 4x5 work in negative books. I didn't do anything with it. But then I had a great career in Detroit, and then at the time when camera scanners were coming out in 1999, digital printers were coming out, I looked back at all the black and white work that I did in the 70s, and I started scanning them and making prints. And then I took all these prints to a gallery director in Chicago and showed them to her, and she goes, don't keep this, do something else, do something new. Try, challenge yourself. So she didn't like the work very much, although the work I still think is very beautiful and important. But it made me go out and start doing photography as a fine art person again. As my career was beginning to max out, I didn't want to do any more commercial samples. I just wanted to concentrate on my fine art work. So then I started doing one project after the next, I was very linear in my work. I'd only do one project at a time. So a lot of artists will do several projects that they're working on, but I was just very, linear in my work. So I did a whole series of Chicago bridges in black and white, and I sold hundreds of those through a gallery dealership, and it was all new work. And that was like 1999 and 2000. And then from there I went over to Mercktown, which is a little neighborhood in East Chicago, Indiana. It's surrounded by all the steel mills. So I documented Mercktown for a year and photographed the architecture. Was very specific. It looked like a little English cottage neighborhood. Every building is stucco and narrow little streets. It's a beautiful little neighborhood. It's only like 3 blocks square. So I documented that for a year, and then I started photographing small African-American storefront churches on the south side of Chicago. That was a 3-year project. And I knocked on their doors. I didn't photograph the outside. I wanted to see the inside of all these little churches and see how the pastors had decorated them and set them up in order to attract the people that would want to come and hear that pastor speak. So I probably photographed 100 churches on the south side of Chicago, and I got rejected once, And I'm a white guy going to a black neighborhood, banging on his church door, the black pastor, and explaining to them, I'd really like to see the inside of your church. But they all said, fine, come in. Spend time with me, you hear my sermon, you know, so I would sit and listen to the sermon as well. I took portraits of some of the members of the church and the pastor, but I was really focused on the details inside the church, all the little things that he set up that were specific to his own personality and his own way of making people feel comfortable. So I had a book published on that work. It was called Articles of Faith. And that was, like I said, a singular project that I worked on. And then after that project was done, I started wanting to go out and photograph rural Illinois and document the rural towns of our state. And that project lasted 5 or 6 years. And it was like I would get out every weekend or every other weekend for a few days and just immerse myself into this culture. And everything I photograph is usually things that I've never known what they were. You know, I wasn't familiar with them. I wanted to learn about them. I wanted to see what it was about them that other people, how they lived, you know, what it was, why they wanted to be there and stuff. So all my projects sort of like work around that premise. And I've also worked on road trips. Like the last couple of years, I've taken 5-week road trips around the country and just documenting each state as I drive through. And you know, a lot of the work is sort of idiosyncratic or kind of maybe humorous, unusual, a little freaky, like, you know, just, when you see the photograph, you just kind of go, oh yeah, that's pretty weird. So I have all that stuff. I've done like 2 major projects, and I've been submitting that work to competitions and stuff, and getting that work in. But the Prairie Land Project probably fits the most personal to me in a sense. You know, I just really loved getting out and meeting the people in these small towns and really enjoying their company and letting me take their pictures in their homes and stuff like that. So, yeah, and then this little series it fits so perfectly into this area of the state. It's a very rural sort of subject matter, and you know, I just really think it's great to have it here at the Blanden Museum. So, I don't know if that's enough for you. If anyone has any questions or anything, I'd love to.
Where were you raised?
Detroit.
Detroit?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I did do a project on Detroit. I forgot to mention that one, didn't I? When all these photographers were going to Detroit around 2010, 28, they were all photographing Detroit's abandonment, all the buildings that are, we call it ruin porn. It's just buildings that were abandoned and shut down, and every photographer was photographing this. And I grew up in Detroit, and I kind of felt hurt that photographers I didn't live there anymore. I lived mostly in Chicago at that time, but my roots were in Detroit. So I felt someone's got to go back and photograph the city in a way that the people that still live there are surviving. They're dealing with all of this economic disaster and everything, and the unemployment. So I went back for like 2010 to like 2015 for 5 years, documenting the city and doing portraits of people and getting their stories and photographing their homes and their location and all of the social stuff that other photographers were forgetting and not even dealing with. And then I had a book published on that work called Detroit Unbroken Down. And then I submitted that work, well actually another photographer submitted my work to the Canadian AGO competition in Canada, and I won that prize. It was a $50,000 prize. And a major show at the museum in Toronto. Yes, and so that was like, whoa, that was pretty cool. I like that.
Did he get a commission?
Huh? Did I get a
No,
commission?
the guy that sent it.
No, it was a woman. She did not. But, it was nice that she recommended me. She had a previous show. And, yeah. But I took the money and I donated it to organizations in Detroit because I didn't need the money. I'm just going, I'm going to give this to people who I know need this. So it's a wonderful prize. But it was a Canadian money, so then when it got to the United States, it was only $35,000, it wasn't $50,000. But it was enough to help organizations out in Detroit that really helping the communities. But after that shot, after that project, I didn't want to leave Detroit. I had that project all done. But a lot of people were telling me, why aren't you taking pictures at night in Detroit? Because, you know, are you afraid to get out? You know, I said, no, I just haven't thought about it. So I did night photography in Detroit of neighborhoods and the architecture. And had another book published called Detroit Nocturne. That came out a few years later. So, and both of those books have done really well, you know, and got a lot of attention. And I was very happy to have been able to produce that work.
Are they still available?
Yes. Yeah, well, you can find them on Google now.
Okay.
You know, just search it, you find one for sale.
Okay.
But those came out in 2015 and 2018. So, but all of my projects, like I said, are very singular in the way that I do them. I just focus on one subject, and I just want to just do it to the maximum limit that I feel like, okay, I've got this done, but you know, it's taken so much time. But I love long-term projects. It's just a way to really involve yourself into subject matters. And why I pick certain subject matters, I don't know. It's all intuitive. I just kind of just.
What's your current project?
It's the road trip.
Alternative road trips.
Yeah, working on that. And they take a little bit longer, and they're spread apart, and not as frequent as every other weekend going out and photographing. You know, just cram it all up into 3 to 5 weeks, and then just go out and just concentrate and get real intense. And I know I do it. And then a few months later, I don't do anything for a few months, and go out and do it again. You know, so that's what we're doing now. Or I'm doing that. Who's me? My wife and I. She photographs. She's a good photographer.
So were you able to meet any of the individuals that on these shots?
No. Like I said, this was all one day.
One day.
Yeah, and it was off season. This was not being used. I tried to get into a lot of them. They all had padlocks on the door, so you couldn't get in. I got into a couple of them, you know, and there were beer cans and cigarette butts. And, you know, that's what you do. You have a good time with your friends while you're hunting. You know, right there.
We only had alcohol afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, which lake is that?
This is Mississippi River.
Mississippi River?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the northwestern part of Illinois, just off by Savannah, maybe between Savannah and East Dubuque. Maybe right in there.
That'd be 2.5 mile long.
Oh, Four Corners.
And where's that?
Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that's right around there.
Pretty neat.
You kind of, I guess I would call it nitty gritty because you get down and dirty when you're doing photography.
Yeah, probably. I'm more interested in things that are economically distressed, you know, poor people. Yeah, I find that more compelling as a photographer to expose and show that type of work to people like us who are far more prosperous. Let them know that there are other people that aren't as fortunate as we are. And that's, I think, what photography should probably do. Inform and educate people about certain subject matter. Yeah.
You have a website someplace, don't you? And a
I
gallery
do.
that we can see all these things you're talking about?
Yes, yeah, it's davejordano.com.
That's a tough one. How do you think?
Yeah. So, I haven't updated the website in a couple of years, so there's none of the recent work and the road trip projects I've been doing, nor none of the night. I've done a lot of night photography in the last couple of years too. But there is some night work on the website. I have a lot of work on the website, so I have several projects listed along the left-hand side of the page. You can just click on them and then it'll go to that project. And then there could be several little windows when you click on that project. Each one of those windows has a portfolio in it. So you click on that window and you'll see 20 more pictures. And then you go back one, so you see that one page. And you click on the next window and you'll see 20 different pictures. So yeah, there's a lot of work on the website.
And none of your work is titled, right? None of the,
This is called duck lines.
I mean, but you could have named the one a car.
Yeah, I just named it.
Or kid.
Yeah, I just call it duck line 1, duck line 2. How was that?
That was our subject this morning. We were talking about unnamed work, work that has no name. If you let that person name it themselves,
Sure.
basically.
Yes.
You got any picture of ducks?
No. You mean like the fake ducks?
Real ducks.
No, I do not.
Oh.
I didn't see any when
Well, the season was probably over.
Yeah.
We're on the Mississippi, we're the east.
Like I said, we're in the northwestern part of Illinois.
Okay.
I think between Savannah and East Dubuque,
Okay.
right along the coast. Yeah. And they were all about a quarter mile apart, maybe, or 1,000 feet apart from each other.
I see there's numbers in some of these. Were these leased out by the,
Yeah,
They
well,
are.
those are registration numbers for the
Yeah.
owners that had them, so you had to pay a fee every year,
Okay.
to have your duck line there. But like I said, these were here for years, before they put in the new regulations. Yeah.
Now, you drove by this area just recently, correct? Or
I did, yeah, we drove by there last time we were in Fort Dodge.
Yeah,
Drove along the coast along Illinois there.
and there's nothing there.
Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing
nothing
at
there,
all.
it says, yeah. Now, are these the question I have is, they're not in the main body of the river, are they kind of in like a slough, like a slough area, or are they in the main body of the river? Like the main flow?
Yeah, I
Or kind of
think,
in a-
I'm trying to remember, it's 15 years ago.
Because some of them feel like they're kind of in like what I would call like a remnant of an oxbow that's
Yeah,
developed into
yeah.
like a
Yeah, they weren't
slough.
that far from the coast. Well, there's no about that.
Yeah, yeah.
It could have been a couple of 100 yards out from the shoreline, you know?
You can tell that some of the crows are closer. some-
Yeah, yeah. The water's not that deep
Yeah.
there.
Any other questions for Dave? If you do, you can grab them afterwards here, but let's thank Dave for coming and sharing. Just remember that I've got plenty of food, so make sure that you fill your bellies before you leave. And also, too, remember to follow us and like us on Facebook. And then if you're not a member, really think about becoming a member. And like I said, we can help you with that. Otherwise, you can go on to our website and register on there. So, and also too, we've got many great art classes available. So if you're interested in honing your skills as an artist, or maybe just dabbling in becoming an artist, we've got many classes available for all ages. So we're here to help your creative side blossom. But thank you again. Oh yeah, and we record all of our art talks and we upload them to our YouTube channel. So you can go back and hear the talk again, and you can listen and watch previous talks on our YouTube channel as well. So thanks, Dan, for reminding me. Other than that, thanks for coming out today and braving the winter weather, and we'll see you back here the next time. I'm trying to think, I think it's in March, I think, is the next one. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we try to use, so we've got upcoming exhibits in March, I think April, but the main thing I want everybody to remember too is our Summer Art Festival that we have. So this year, the Summer Art Festival at the museum is June 14th, and we'll have plenty to do outside with plus some amazing exhibits here in the museum, and plenty of music, food, art being sold. So if you're in the Fort Dodge area in June, make sure you mark your calendar to come back on June 14th here. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.